Upbeat, mysterious music starts and then fades slightly into the background. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we're venturing to the coldest, driest, and most remote continent on Earth, Antarctica. But we're not here for the penguins or the stunning ice shelves. We're here to uncover a story lost to time, a chapter of history buried under miles of ice. Forget the Klondike, forget California. We're talking about the great, forgotten Antarctic gold rush. Slight pause for effect. I know what you're thinking. Gold? In Antarctica? It sounds like something out of a fantasy novel. But what if I told you that for a brief, frantic period at the dawn of the 20th century, whispers of immense wealth hidden beneath the polar ice cap drove men to the very edge of the world? This is the story of the ice prospectors, the brave and perhaps slightly mad individuals who chased a frozen dream. Our story begins not in the freezing South, but in a dusty London library in 1908. A geologist named Arthur Thorne, poring over the barely legible journals of an early ill-fated polar expedition, found a curious entry. The journal described veins of shimmering yellow in a rock face exposed by a glacial melt, deep within a previously uncharted mountain range they called the Ghost Peaks. The expedition perished on their return journey, and their findings were dismissed as the delirious ramblings of starving men. But Thorne saw something else. He saw potential. He cross-referenced the vague coordinates with new geological surveys and theories about continental drift. The data lined up. The geological composition of that part of Antarctica was surprisingly similar to the rich gold-bearing regions of South Africa and Western Australia. Thorne became obsessed. He gathered investors, chartered a reinforced whaling ship named the Frost Maiden, and assembled a crew of hardened sailors and optimistic miners, all sworn to secrecy. In late 1910, the Frost Maiden departed from Hobart, Tasmania, slipping away under the cover of darkness. The world's attention was on the famous race to the South Pole between Scott and Amundsen. No one noticed this small, private expedition with a very different prize in its sights. The journey south was brutal. They battled hurricane-force winds and dodged icebergs the size of city blocks. The crew, used to the North Atlantic, were unprepared for the sheer, hostile power of the Southern Ocean. But they made it. They established a small, precarious base camp on the coast, naming it Thorne's Hope. From there, the real challenge began, the overland trek to the Ghost Peaks. They used experimental motorized sleds, which broke down constantly in the extreme cold, and hardy Siberian dogs. The landscape was a white desert, monotonous and disorienting. The sun, which never set, played tricks on their eyes, and the biting wind was a constant torment. After a grueling 6-week journey, they found them, the Ghost Peaks. And just as the Lost Journal described, an exposed cliff face, scoured clean by the wind, revealed undeniable veins of quartz shot through with a familiar glittering yellow. It was gold, and there was a lot of it. The initial samples they took were incredibly rich. The excitement in the camp was electric. They had done it. They had found gold at the bottom of the world. Working in these conditions was a nightmare. Temperatures dropped to -40 degrees. Tools would shatter with a single misplaced strike, and frostbite was a constant, immediate threat. They could only work for short bursts before retreating to their wind-battered tents, huddled around a small stove, dreaming of the fortunes they were carving from the ice. They used dynamite to blast the frozen rock, the explosions echoing eerily across the silent continent. Word, however, has a way of getting out. A rival whaling crew, spotting Thorne's unusual activity from afar, grew suspicious. They managed to get one of Thorne's sailors talking in a port in New Zealand, and the secret was out. The news spread like wildfire through the taverns and docks of port cities from Australia to Chile. Gold beneath the ice. The headlines were sensational, exaggerated, and utterly irresistible. The rush was on. Within a year, a chaotic flotilla of ships descended on Antarctica. These weren't organized expeditions. They were ragtag groups of dreamers, chancers, and desperate men on repurposed fishing boats and old cargo steamers, completely ill-equipped for the Antarctic. They landed all along the coast, establishing makeshift camps with names like Klondike on Ice and New El Dorado. It was a scene of utter chaos. The Antarctic, however, does not suffer fools gladly. The continent fought back. Ships were crushed by the advancing sea ice. Makeshift camps were literally blown away by katabatic winds. Many of the new prospectors, with no experience of polar conditions, succumbed to scurvy, snow blindness, and the relentless cold. The continent that promised riches was delivering only hardship and despair. Very few even made it inland towards the Ghost Peaks. Meanwhile, Thorne's original crew, the only ones with any real success, faced a different problem. They had mined a significant amount of gold, but getting it out was proving more dangerous than digging it up. Their ship, the Frost Maiden, became trapped in the winter ice pack. They were stranded, with a fortune in gold, but no way to spend it. They had to survive a long, dark polar winter, rationing their food and fuel, listening to the ice groaning and shifting around their trapped vessel. When spring finally arrived and the ice began to break, a dramatic rescue was mounted. But by then, the world's attention had shifted. The First World War had broken out. The Antarctic gold rush, which had never truly delivered on its promise for anyone but Thorne's crew, was completely forgotten. The handful of survivors who straggled back to civilization were met not with fanfare, but with a world preoccupied with a global conflict. Their stories of ice and gold sounded like tall tales, the ravings of men who had spent too long in the cold. After the war, the Antarctic Treaty was eventually signed, designating the continent as a scientific preserve and banning any mineral exploitation. The Ghost Peaks and their golden veins were officially placed off limits, forever. The story of the gold rush faded into myth, a footnote in the much grander epics of polar exploration. So, what happened to the gold? Thorne and his surviving crew did manage to bring a portion of it back, making them quietly wealthy. But they claimed that the majority of their haul, several crates of high-grade ore, had to be abandoned to lighten their sleds during a desperate retreat from the advancing winter. They created a map, supposedly leading to the cache, which became something of a legend in itself. To this day, treasure hunters and historians debate its existence. Is there really a fortune in gold sitting in an ice cave somewhere in the Ghost Peaks, waiting to be rediscovered? Or was it just a story, a final myth, to cap off one of history's most incredible and forgotten adventures? We may never know. The ice keeps its secrets well. It's a powerful reminder that our planet still has mysteries, places where history and legend blur, buried deep beneath the ice. Thanks so much for joining me on this journey to the frozen South. It's a wild story, isn't it? If you enjoyed this dive into a forgotten chapter of history, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our next adventure. Let me know in the comments what you think. Is the gold still out there? Until next time, stay curious.